Hello, and welcome to the Ranching Returns podcast, where we believe that when done right, your return on ranching can be far more than just extreme profitability, but a return to your land resource as well as a priceless lifestyle. Hey there, and welcome back to the Ranching Returns podcast, sponsored by Faro Cattle Company. If you are interested in Faro Cattle Company genetics, the bull sale season is right around the corner. It is not too late. You can get more information at farocattle.com, but the Texas bull sale is on April 7th. That's a week from the day this is released, a week and 1 day. The Missouri bull sale is the April 13th, and the Colorado bull sale is April 20th. So all coming up here over the next few weeks. Be sure to get more information at farocattle.com if that's something you're interested in. A fantastic forage developed low input bulls that will help you develop the kind of cows that are going to thrive on your ranch. Today's episode is with Dylan Enger, and Dylan is a rancher in North Dakota. He's ranching with his uncle and his brother as well. And we talk about all the stuff they're doing on their ranch there. We talk about how he and his brother, their choice to take off ranch jobs, even when they maybe didn't have to, and how that's allowed them to kind of keep a lot more income inside the business to reinvest and expand and grow their ranch business, and a lot of other cool stuff as well. I was going to take an opportunity here to share another kind of learning, I guess you could say, from the Bible that I've had this last week. And I think this one actually came from a podcast. It might have been Wesley Huff, I was listening to on a podcast who talked about this, but it was really interesting to me because we've all heard the do unto others as you would have done unto you. I think everybody's probably heard that said, even if you didn't maybe know it was from the Bible specifically. It comes from the book of Matthew, verse 7, chapter 12. So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law of the prophets, the law and the prophets. That's what that says. And I'm not sure, whoever it was that said it, kind of addressed a thing that was, I think I'm guilty of, is that we often take that, do unto others as you would have done unto you, almost as do not do unto others what you would not want done to you. So don't go up and slap somebody because you wouldn't want someone to come up and slap you, or don't go steal from somebody because you wouldn't want someone to steal from you, or don't take credit from your coworker who had an awesome idea because you wouldn't want them to take credit for your idea. But that's actually not what the Bible says. It's not like a commandment to not do things. It's a call to action to do things. Do unto others what you would have done unto you. So be intentional and go out and seek opportunities to do unto others as you would have done unto you. My wife and I had a baby at the end of January, and I would say we got to experience this very firsthand. In fact, it was pretty incredible, and from one person individual who has 4 kids, the 2 youngest are twins. She's got her hands full, and she drove 30 minutes out of their way to give us a meal. What a blessing. What a cool thing that she had done unto us, that she went out of her way to make us a meal and to serve us in that way. And so I guess I've been really thinking as I go throughout life and in my day-to-day business, how can I be more intentionally seeking out opportunities to do for others, things, and to serve others in ways that I would hope to be served. And so thought I'd share that with you as a really kind of interesting paradigm shift on that perspective, that verse, because maybe nobody else thought of it that way. But when I hear do unto you others as you would have done unto you, I almost took it more as a commandment to not do things that you wouldn't want done. And it really is a call to action. So thought I'd share that. It was interesting to me. With that, we'll dive into today's episode with Dylan. Thank you all so much. Dylan, thank you so much for joining me, and welcome to the Ranching Returns podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to another cattleman facing the great north up in the upper part of the country here. I don't know if you had this blizzard that went through last weekend, or did that miss you guys up in North Dakota?
No, we missed it. So we got
nice.
It's actually been, a pretty mild winter. We've had a couple of
Good.
cold snaps here and there, but for the most part, we've been pretty lucky.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we had like 2 feet of snow, I think, last weekend, but it was crazy because it was gone 4 days later.
Yeah.
It was welcome to Minnesota, I guess. The weather changes pretty aggressively. But for folks who aren't familiar with you or don't know where you're at or anything, maybe give me an overview of where you're at, your operation as it stands today, and then we'll kind of dive back into the history of it a little bit and kind of, work back to where you're at.
Yeah. No, so I am from Stanley, North Dakota, born and raised here, or actually, I guess, raised the first couple of years over in Palermo, which is right nearby anyway. So Stanley is about an hour from Canada and an hour from Montana,
Okay.
northwestern North Dakota.
Yeah, way over there.
Yeah, no, I'm on a family farm and ranch, primarily a commercial cow-calf operation, do a handful of registered red Angus, and then also have a direct-to-consumer retail beef business that we started back in 2019 as well, kind of right when I got out of
Good
college and
timing.
going right into COVID. So it
Yeah.
naturally kind of exploded from there. But yeah, been here and been involved with the farm and ranch, and I guess since college too, I've always maintained a full time job off the farm as well too. So definitely
Mhm.
stay plenty busy and no, a lot
Oh,
going on.
right. Sounds like it. So, is this a long-term family operation then, it sounds like? I mean, what do you know how far back the history of the family on that place goes, or?
Yes. So right now, actively involved would be primarily my uncle, myself, my brother, along with my uncle's
Mhm.
wife, my daughter. My brother's not married or anything, and I've got some other relatives that'll jump in and help out. But basically, uncle's level would be third generation, and I would be fourth generation.
Okay.
My daughter
Your uncle, fourth
coming fifth
generation.
generation. So
Sure,
been
sure.
here a while. It was the original a homestead place. So
Okay. So far enough north and west that is that was that pretty much always been range and cattle country then? Is that kind of always been the enterprise?
it's probably a 50-50 split, cattle and
Really?
crop, honestly.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean,
I
you'll
didn't.
find pockets here and there, where, it's probably 85% cattle in one area and you drive 10 miles down the road and it's 85% cropland.
Really?
It
Sure.
varies.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess when I think of parts of that western North Dakota, maybe this is further south where it's more like badland rolling country or like rough country. Is that not quite where you're at, or is
Yeah.
it more rolling and smooth?
You go an hour kind of southwest of us and you get into some more of that where it's more just
Okay.
cattle country.
Okay. Sure. So do you do any crops yourself, or is it all cattle? Your family?
Yeah, no, we do some crops,
Okay.
not much. Most of the cash crop acre does get utilized for feed, whether that's hay barley,
Hmm.
oats for hay, silage, grain corn, things like that. So not
Sure.
not huge on the farming side.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So I guess the history of your family, it's largely been cow calf the entire time. Do you have much, I guess, knowledge of kind of what the production model was with the cow herd and kind of what they've done? Was it just commercial cow calf, sell weaned calves, wean to finish? What kind of
Yeah, no,
enterprises have you been running?
historically it's been commercial cow calf and selling weaned calves in the fall, up until the last 12 or 15 years we started backgrounding our own calves and then
Okay.
got into retaining, and holding over some heifers and breeding and
Yeah.
developing and selling some bred heifers and running
Mm-hmm.
a few steers on grass and kind of just expanding the different
Right.
enterprises that way. But yeah, that was only up until the last, dozen or 15 years, I'd say.
Sure. Okay. Nice. So I guess growing up on this place, then did you expect to be able to come home? Was there opportunity for you to come back, or what were your thoughts at
I
that time?
think the opportunity was always there. I always kind of went into, further education and the plan to come back was always kind of the side goal, just kind of assuming that I would have to maintain a full time career to some degree. Mainly not because I needed to per se, but I kind of wanted to. And then, we do also have a full time hired guy that helps out. And so there's different times of the year where it requires a lot more involvement from, all of us. And then other times of the
Yeah.
year, we get by with one or two guys doing, some of the day to day. And, if there's four of us sitting in the shop, at a lot of time twiddling our thumbs. So,
Yeah. Right.
no, it works out well to have
Right.
an off farm career as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And I don't know if you felt this way. Part of it might be time. I kind of felt the same way. I'm probably not much different age than you, but when I came home, there was opportunity for me to be home full time. And I could probably make a living on the salary that the farm would generate, but it wasn't like an extravagant living. It's farmhand salary and stuff. And if you got goals of wanting to buy land someday or expanding operations or investing into something else, that may or may not come from a farm salary, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Yeah. So you kind of viewed it similarly as the job off the farm as an opportunity to expand the income a little beyond what you could have made.
Yes, exactly. And beings that, uncle is still kind of the ramrod of the operation. I guess
Mm-hmm.
he's got his things to take care of yet and whatnot, and my brother and I are still actively involved, but both of us do have off farm jobs, so it definitely
Sure.
helps kind of
Yeah.
ease the burden, the financial stress of the farm and ranch, knowing that you
Right.
don't have to support everybody to that full degree.
Yeah.
So it works well. It really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. There's something to be said for, even if the farm can afford it, when you bring in all these people and have all that income outflow, out of the ranch just for living expenses, that doesn't leave a lot for reinvestment or expansion opportunities if you've got it all flowing into overhead of labor and stuff. So, no, that,
Exactly, and I think that has played a big role in, the expansion that we've been able to do over the last few years,
sure.
not necessarily having to support, us, fully.
Right.
We do get some support, obviously, but,
Yeah.
a lot of it
Yeah.
just is reinvested in the farm and ranch.
Right, right. No, that makes a ton of sense. So I guess when you were thinking that you would need an off-farm job, what kind of jobs were you looking into? First of all, I guess just regionally. I mean, I don't know what kind of opportunity there is out there for careers and stuff. It's a long way from major metro areas and whatnot, and also the flexibility required to be involved in a ranch business too. What kind of career options were there?
Yeah. From the start, back in my mind, always thought, like local John Deere dealership,
Right.
an ag sector of some sort where I could still be involved, but still, work with other farmers and ranchers and things like that. I knew that's where I wanted to stay,
Hmm.
and actually had a really good opportunity right out of college to jump on board with a local agronomy co-op right in town. And
Nice.
I ended up with a role there, livestock product sales. So was able to sell feed and mineral and some fencing material and things like that. And so it was a really good opportunity that I was able to sell all of the products that I already know and trust and,
Right.
and like, and I'm 10 miles from home and, there's
Yeah.
some flexibility there as far as, if things had to be done here, it was easy to take a day off. And, it just kind
Hmm.
of adds to your credibility when a guy calls you and,
Right.
you're at the side of the chute working cattle and they're like, "Oh, well, if you're busy doing this, give me a call afterwards." And it just
Yeah.
kind of a
Right.
conversation starter. So it definitely helps.
Right.
From there, I did accept another position in egg sales. Basically, I was able to sell everything I already was, but then
Hmm.
opened it up to lines of equipment, balers, mixer wagons, bale processors, just I saw it as an opportunity to add more to the resume and then still sell products that I truly liked and believed in and enjoyed being around.
Hmm.
That was career number 2, and then once we were expecting our baby, I had another opportunity come available with TerraClear, and that opportunity just offered being able to work remote or have an office at
Sure.
home while
Yeah.
still kind of covering the same territory that I was already used to. And it
Hmm.
expanded some, so there's some additional travel and things like that, but having some extra flexibility as far as that goes too, where I can kind of dictate the schedule and our busy seasons with TerraClear are just a little bit opposite of the farm and ranch busy seasons,
Sure.
for the
Nice.
pre-planning and stuff. So that it worked out really
Right.
well there.
Right. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah. It seems like ag. I have a lot of friends that work in ag careers and stuff too. That most of the industry, like you said, that credibility that's added by being a producer is beneficial in the career, and so they're pretty understanding generally of the schedule that you have with the job because probably the benefit of having that on the resume too and that credibility is it outweighs the downside of you're busy a little bit. That's
Oh,
part of it.
it's huge. Yeah, no, when a
Yeah.
customer calls and they can hear something going on in the
Yeah.
background and they
Yeah.
they instantly connect and it's an
Yes.
easy conversation. So
Right, right. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Excuse me. Yeah, no, has it been tough though? I mean, you made it work, it sounds like, but it for a lot of people, whether they're first generation operations or working into something, they have a career on side of on the side of the ranch business and stuff. Any, I guess, thoughts on that experience? What's I mean, I'm sure it's not all perfect. It's
yeah,
got some challenges.
no, it for the most part it goes well together, but I mean there are definitely some really long days. You get into haying season and things like that where you're running around and seeing customers or doing this and that, and then you get home at night and maybe grab a quick bite or whatever. pack a sandwich quick, and then you're going to the hayfield to go and
Mhm.
bale hay
Yeah.
for, until it's not fit any longer. So, I mean, there definitely gets to be some early mornings, late nights, and, just long days in general. So that
Yeah.
part can get tough, but like I said, it all goes so well together, and it's enjoyable. I enjoy it all, so I think it's not as stressful as it may sound to me.
Yeah. 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 It is amazing how much you can work when you enjoy what you're doing for the most part.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. I probably would have burned out long ago if I didn't enjoy all the stuff I had going on. So, yeah. Yeah. I imagine it's probably changed a little bit with the child. I mean, not in terms of your ability to do it and stuff, but has that added any stress to being gone and whatnot?
Not I wouldn't say it has added any stress. I mean, there's definitely more excitement, and it kinda makes you restructure your priorities. Would definitely say that, you kinda look forward
Yeah.
to getting home a little sooner and things like that. You're not as eager to run and sign up to do this and that, and,
Yeah.
working in the shop half the night. I mean, you definitely wanna find your time and spend with your kid, and, hopefully
Yeah.
more kids in the future as well. So I
Right.
think, as more kids come into the picture, that conversation might change a little bit more, and there
Yeah.
might be a few more gray hairs, but no, it's
Yeah.
it's all for the
Right.
better, and it's sure been fun and rewarding, and it just makes me look forward to being able to raise our kids, kind of with the
Mhm.
same background, and hopefully they enjoy
Right.
it as much as I have.
Yeah, absolutely. If a neighbor came to you tomorrow and offered you the opportunity to lease their land and run their cattle, do you feel confident enough in your business to know whether or not you can take that opportunity on and be profitable at it? I know for myself and so many people, you may not have that kind of confidence. And if that's you, it might be worth adding someone to your team to do it. John Haskell and his team at Ranch Right LLC can take on the bookwork for your business. They can break out your income and expenses by enterprise and know what enterprises in your business are making you money and which enterprises are losing you money, so that the next time an opportunity comes your way, you can take action with decisiveness and confidence, knowing the numbers of your business support that decision. Again, if that's something you're interested in, you can reach out to John and his team at ranchrightlc.com. I'm curious, and I didn't ask beforehand if this was okay to talk about, so it's totally fine if you're not interested in talking about it, but like the kind of dynamic of having a brother, a dad, and an uncle all involved in an operation where there's a lot of incomes. You have outside incomes and stuff, but you're all kind of, I mean, I don't know. Is there challenges with that where you're like, yeah, I'd like to be home, but so would my brother, and there's not enough room for all of us, so we got to have. I mean, just the dynamics of having multiple people in there, probably with a desire to be more involved, but not maybe a reality of it. Any.
Yeah, no, and I feel like it is kind of a special circumstance, and so to kind of add to that dynamic, my dad actually passed away when I was 10, and so
Oh, I'm
that's when
sorry.
my uncle kind of assumed the father figure role, if you will. We lived a mile away from the farm here
Yeah,
growing up, and so I mean, we were a little bit involved, but not much,
yeah.
and we were young. I was the oldest sibling when my dad passed away, and so
Hmm.
got a sister that's a couple years younger, and then my brother is, I think, about 7 years younger than me. So, I
Sure.
mean, we were all pretty young, and so kind of growing up and working through that, the place has obviously grown quite a bit just from having myself, my brother,
Hmm.
cousins, whatnot, help out and kind of expand that way. It's kind of I don't know if there's really a good way to answer your question with the
Well, it
dynamic.
wasn't a very well phrased question either, so I
Yeah,
don't.
and so I'm just trying to think of how a guy could
Yeah,
describe it. I mean, it was kind of always the thought, or I don't wanna say expectation, because, I mean, I feel like if we truly wanted to be on the farm full time, I mean, we could have made it work, or we would have made it work, but it was always just encouraged that, "Hey, explore other options," I mean, the goal is to come back here, at the end of the day, or in the future.
yeah,
In the
right,
meantime, like, hey, to make all this work, it would just help if we're not having to support all
right.
of us at one
Yeah,
time. So
yeah, and
it's
that's
yeah, I don't really know how to answer
no,
that.
that's fair. Yeah,
We've
you
made
and
it work, but I would like to see it restructured a little bit just to make it
sure,
cleaner.
right. Right. And those things will, I'm sure, over time, hopefully get worked out. You mentioned a couple times like that you've kind of expanded with you and your brother being back and able to kind of contribute towards the labor side and stuff. I mean, can you talk, I mean, before you were back, was it just your uncle then kind of doing everything? And how did, what did the operation look like then? And how did you guys coming back contribute so much to the expansion?
Yeah, it was primarily just my uncle. We would help out here and there growing up and being in school and sports and things like that. Our time
Yeah.
was limited to truly
Right.
help out. So no, it once we were old enough and out of school and things like that and kind of had careers under our feet and things like that, I mean, we were we were able to grow quite a bit, and whether that's just from relationships that myself or my brother have had that opened up opportunity for
Yeah.
additional land to rent or to do whatever. No, it's hard to really, kind of draw out exactly how it
Yeah.
what went, but it was just kind of such a natural organic growth, just
Right.
that it's hard to really pinpoint like, hey, this
Yeah.
is what we did and this is why it worked, and
Right.
it was
Well,
organic growth.
the way you guys did it makes so much sense in that, like you talked, first of all, I feel like when major expansion opportunities come around, especially for kind of those sole family operators who haven't really figured out employees and expansion through labor and stuff, expansion can be pretty stressful probably just from the labor perspective, and now you've got two young family related people who are coming in, so providing some of that labor, and then the next labor challenge is the expense associated with it, and because you both brought income from off the farm, there wasn't quite that as significant of a drain. It seems like the perfect way to expand, where there's labor availability without extreme costs
Yes.
associated with
No,
and
that and
stuff.
that's a very good way to put it.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. I know I've got some friends around here, row crop farmers specifically. He and his dad, have always had off farm work, and I've kind of asked him, I'm like, well, why don't you guys have a large enough farm? Why don't you do it and stuff? Why don't you both be back full time? And that's what he said. I mean, you can do that, but that pulls that much income out of the operation that could have been used to reinvest into expansion and operation. And so it's a decision that a lot of people might choose, and nothing wrong with that choice, but recognizing that choosing to pull a salary, a larger income from the farm reduces that for reinvestment potential or
Yeah.
other
No,
opportunities. So
there's
yeah,
always the opportunity cost.
right, yeah, yeah, right. That's awesome. Oh, cool. So I guess as far as the kind of livestock side, you kind of raised commercial cow calf primarily and whatnot. What's your program been for them as far as production model, calving season? You talked a little bit about switching to background in cattle and whatnot and
Yeah.
stuff.
So kind of from the start, even, when my grandpa had cattle and when my uncle was young and had cattle, calved earlier. It was just the traditional cow calf model, that
Hmm.
about anybody in North Dakota had. It was, they were calving, end of February, beginning of March, things like that. And it worked. There was less cows to handle and
Yeah,
whatnot. And it was easier to manage, as time progressed, ended up retaining more cattle and whatnot. We ended up pushing back our calving date, and it was kind of a slow process. Every year we would move it back by another week or whatnot, and
yeah,
finally ended up to where we're May calving for all of the commercial cows.
sure.
And we've got enough grass right around home to where it works that we can split all of these cows up into their summer pasture groups essentially
Hmm.
prior to calving. And so when it
Sure.
comes time to calve, they're calving out in their groups. When it comes time, the end of June, middle to the end of June, we'll run all them cows into the corral. We'll brand and vaccinate calves and things like that, and then haul out to pasture. And in some cases, we'll haul to pasture prior to that, and then just go work those calves in the
Hmm.
pasture.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's a commercial cow-calf operation for the most
That
part. We run primarily commercial red Angus cows, so then we do utilize some Hereford bulls and then some Shar bulls, just for some heterosis. We like
yeah,
breeding Hereford bulls to the straight red cows, and then the F1 Baldy cows that we've actually bred them to Charolais, and have
sure.
been pretty darn impressed with the results there.
Okay, so you're retaining heifers out of those Hereford ones for replacements, and then the Shar crosses are all terminal.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, I like that. That makes sense. Yeah, and and with the calving thing, that's really interesting. So you send them out to all these different pastures before they start calving. How intensive, or I guess how management intensive, are you with the calving season? Is it pretty hands off, or especially when you got them spread all over the place? How does that work?
Yeah, and so The bulk of them. I mean, we've got a chunk of ground here close to home, and we've got that split up into, I think it's 6 or 7 different cells, and so each group will go into a cell, so to speak,
Mhm.
where they've all got access to water and whatnot, and so they're still within proximity of the place and the working facilities and things like that, so it's not like we're running all over to different pastures to check and to feed and things like that. It's all still
Sure.
kind of on the home quarters
I see.
place.
Right.
So as far as, like, management goes, I mean, May, it's busy time, I mean, there's field work and, other things that are getting done, other projects. So, I mean, we'll make it a point to get out and check, a couple, 3 times a day. And, if you notice
Yeah.
something that you got to keep an eye on, go out and recheck and whatnot. But for the most part, calving on grass and, I think a lot of the genetic selection plays a role in the calving, not necessarily calving ease, because I mean, we're not trying to spit out 60-pound calves or anything, but just making good genetic selections to allow these cows to go out and do it on their own, spit out
Mhm.
a calf and mother it up well. I mean, I'm not going to say that here or there you've got one that, you missed because you didn't keep a watchful eye on it, but man, the stress reduction in just us running around the clock has been reduced drastically. I mean,
Right.
and the calves do really well. I mean, we're calving later than what we had in the past, and we've got weaning weights that are far surpassing what we used to have. And some of that plays into your genetic selection, but I think a lot of
Mhm.
it is the calves just get a really good, healthy start, get calved
Yeah.
out on grass, and they kind of hit the ground running, and they
Yeah.
have such a healthy start.
Yeah. So moving the calving window back, you're still getting a pretty acceptable weaning weight, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I like that, like you said, you might every now and then you lose a calf or something like that. That can maybe happen because you're not keeping as watchful an eye. And one of the paradigm shifting moments for me, I don't even remember where I heard it, was the idea that, you can have all this cost. Like, let's say you build a calving barn to reduce death loss calving or whatever, or something like that. And the idea, you save because of that, you save 3 calves a year. I don't know, something like that, because you had that barn. Well, the cost can't really be divided across the whole herd because that barn only saved 3 additional calves. The rest would have been fine anyway. It's kind of like same with your labor. You
Yeah.
could have all that labor to manage and make sure you don't lose a single calf. And if you do that, all that labor and all that work really has to be attributed just to the 1 or 2 or 3 calves you actually lost from it. So yeah,
Yeah.
you might lose a calf, but you're still far better ahead than spending all that money and all that time and all that work and stress just to save a couple more calves and stuff like that. And when you calve in May, you really don't have a ton of risk of like the blizzard that wipes out a whole calf
Right.
crop or something like that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and I mean, like the bred heifers and things like that, I mean, we keep them
right.
close to the yard and have
Yeah,
access to run them through a barn if we need to, but
yeah,
even that,
yeah,
I mean, they're on about 80 acres that they can calve out on, and
yeah.
they do really well.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's perfect. I know when we went from March calving to May calving, life got a lot better. More calving season got a lot more enjoyable, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It is a little tougher, like you say, you're fighting the other planting and the other work you have going on and stuff, but, hopefully between all the people you've got around that maybe you're able to balance that pretty well anyway.
Yeah, yeah. No, we custom hire some of it too, so no,
Sure.
it works out well for us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So as far as heifer replacements and stuff, then you have kind of commercial reds, you say, as your base, and then you breed those to Hereford. Are you breeding anything to just reds with those? So you have more red replacements, or is that coming from your registered herd, or where do those kind of come from
Mainly
that?
the mainly the registered herd. If
Okay.
we've got option to purchase some reputable red heifers, we'll consider that as well.
Yeah.
But typically, we've kinda got our straight red Angus cow herd, and they range in years and whatnot of age, so it's honestly, if we go out into the bred heifer pen or even the replacement heifer pen, I'm gonna say 80% of those heifers are F1 Baldies.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's just we really like them for mothers, and so I say we're primarily commercial red Angus, but, there's a good chunk of the cow herd that are true F1 Baldies that we've retained.
Yeah. Yeah. Where did the registered Red Angus herd kind of come from? Has that always been around, or something you added more recently? Or
No, actually, years ago, and when I say years ago, it's probably 15 years ago, my uncle had used to had kind of a mixed herd, blacks and reds and things like that. Decided, like, "Hey, let's focus on one color just, to kinda have some uniformity and kinda clean up the herd."
yeah.
At that
Yeah.
time, black was predominantly the main color of cattle around here, and I've always been the guy that it's got to be different, so
Yeah. Yeah.
chose red cattle and started following the red Angus genetics and
Yeah.
sales and the lineage and just different things like that, and really enjoyed it, and so really took a liking to that. And now again, we're had some opportunity to purchase some black heifers and some black cows from a neighbor and things like that. So we do have some black cows again around
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
But no, my heart's still a softie for red Angus genetics. I
Yeah.
just enjoy it, and that's what I've followed,
Yeah.
since I got involved.
I think that's exactly the same reason my grandpa got into reds. Like he used to have Fleckvieh Simmental, like the big, kind of look like Hereford, the white and red
Yep.
Simmentals and stuff like that. And somewhere along the line, he decided to switch, and he said, everybody and their brothers got Angus cows, so we're just going to do something different. And he went the red route, and it's worked well
Yeah.
for him and stuff, and we're still doing it. But yeah, that's awesome. So I guess with the commercial cow herd then and stuff too, you'll have some, red baldies, you'll have probably what like kind of smoke color Charolais type calves and stuff like that. Is that a challenge marketing calves that first of all, they're not black? I mean, the market always seems to want black, and then you've got a mix and match of different kind of types of animals, or is that
Yeah.
not too big of a deal?
It can be depending on how and where you market them, but,
Hmm.
typically we'll contract any of the steer calves and things like that are gonna get sold in the fall off the cow, and in those contracts, we'll typically have, that there'll be reds, red white-faced, some Char cross calves, things like that, so it covers our bases.
Sure.
Of those, F1 Baldy cows that are bred to Charolais, we might end up with, a half a dozen, 10, 12 calves that are really kind of chromed up. They've still got Hereford markings, but they're like buckskin calves, and so they're just a little odd colored.
Hmm.
Things like that. If they'll fit the group, then we can sell them, with the other
Yeah.
show calves. But otherwise, any kind of miscolored cattle like that will end up just going into the butcher pen, for the
Perfect.
retail
Yeah.
meat business. So,
Right.
and that's kind of why we had started that, was to just capture some value out of these animals that otherwise you'd get
Yeah.
discounted heavily
Yeah.
on for no
Right.
reason.
Yeah. So I want to get into that because that's a great point, and I want to ask more about that. I'm just curious, one more curiosity question on this. So you've got purebred reds, you got F1 Baldies, and you got, that are, or you got red calves, out of red cows and bulls. Then you've got the Hereford cross calves, and then you've got the F1 Baldies bred to Charolais calves. I'm
Yep.
curious what you see as far as calves at weaning and just performance between the three, the purebreds, the two breed cross and the three breed cross in terms of calves. Do you see much of a
Oh,
difference?
yeah, and that's one reason that we kinda got away from just the red on red, years ago. My uncle was a pretty big advocate for needing heterosis to some degree, and so
Hmm.
that's where we got into the Herefords. There, I think you could honestly consistently say you've seen a, 20 to 40 pound difference, from just a red on red calf to throwing in some
Right.
heterosis with the Hereford. And
Yeah.
now we take that F1 Baldy cow, breed her to Charolais. I mean, I'll be honest, I bet it was a 60 to 70 pound
Wow. On
weight
top
difference
of the
at
Hereford
weaning,
cross or on top of the reds?
on top of the solid reds, I would say.
Okay.
So an
Sure.
additional 30 to
30, 40
40
pounds.
pounds above even just the
Wow.
straight
Yeah.
F1 cross. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. That's really cool. Do you see anything on the cow side? Like, are those cross? And this is probably pretty hard if you're not, doing feed tests or keeping groups separate. But between the different groups, are those crossbred cows eating more, consuming more to put out that weight? Or
I don't, as far as consumption and things like that, we haven't measured it, and
yeah, it would be hard. Yeah,
you can't,
yeah,
it's hard to say there, but I mean,
yeah,
just the F1 Baldy cow, I mean, just a tremendous mother. They milk good, they're docile. I mean, there's a lot of
yeah,
things that you can't really necessarily measure,
yeah. Right.
but you definitely notice.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah.
I know you can't manage what you don't measure, and it's something like I should be
It's hard.
mental
No, it's
about.
hard to do. I realized that would have been a tough ask for you to say, yeah, these cows consume X amount more pounds and stuff. They talk about, there's no such thing as a free lunch, but that crossbreeding is one of the closest things to a free lunch you can get. And it'd be neat to know if there's data out there that I guess talks about the cost associated with those gains, but it makes sense. I have no doubt. And also from, like you're saying, all the other benefits I've always heard too, like, yeah, when you can breed a couple different breeds that have a few problems each and you put them together, and it seems like generally it's the problems that get wheat bred out, not bred for all the problems in a cow. It seems like it kind of comes together and fixes a lot of those things that you
It
might see.
does.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So then you brought up the marketing business. 2019, you started that. Tell me a little, where did that, I mean, it originated, it sounds like, from trying to add a little value to a few things then?
Yeah, well, and even the original start of it was ended up with 2 kinda fat calves that somebody had that they wanted to sell, or, they still needed some time on feed, and
Hmm.
so we got them and fed them out or whatever with the idea that we were just gonna feed them out for ourselves, being born and raised on a farm and ranch, I'd always wondered, like, why aren't we just
Yeah.
doing this more often? It was just easy to go to the
Right.
grocery store and whatever.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there's let's just do it. These calves look good. Let's feed them out and process them and whatnot. And had
Hmm.
somebody call and say like, hey, are you interested in selling a half a beef or a whole beef or whatnot? And it's, well, we've got 2, so yeah, we'd let a half or a whole go. And
Hmm.
next thing you know, got another call and they said, well, they'd be interested in another half or whatever. And all of
Yep.
a sudden, we were down to a quarter or a half ourselves. And I
Right.
thought,
Yeah.
okay, well, I guess maybe next year let's just save a half a dozen calves and
Hmm.
feed out. Next thing you know, those were sold in no time, and the
Yeah.
following year it was like 13 or something that we
Wow.
saved back and
Yeah.
fed and processed and sold, and then after that it was like 22, and then it was 45, and now it's on average about 60 a year.
Wow.
Um, so I
That's
mean, and
awesome.
it's yeah, it's all been organic growth. I mean, word of mouth for the most part. I mean, try to say I do a little advertising on Facebook, but that's a post or 2 a year, it seems.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm almost intimidated or don't wanna advertise because I'm afraid I'm not gonna be able to keep up.
Right. Right. Yeah. Honestly, that's awesome, man. I feel like everybody, there's a lot of people out there trying to build a business that gets to selling 60 head a year, and you just kind of stumbled into it almost, it
Yeah,
sounds like, which timing helped with COVID. But it
it
sounds
did.
like, I mean, a lot of the growth came later as well.
Yes, and I think a lot of it too is just being kinda rural North Dakota. There's, I mean, you gotta travel. I mean, if you're gonna go to your local grocery store, that's great, but if you're gonna, travel beyond that, I mean, you
Mm,
can assume you're gonna travel an hour in a lot of cases, and sometimes
right.
more than that to go and buy much,
Yeah.
and I think, yes, COVID definitely helped where everybody, wants to know what they're getting, where it's coming from, who raised it,
Yeah.
things like that. So that helped, but as soon as, one customer would purchase, then they've got coworkers or family members calling or friends or neighbors, and they're like, "Oh, so and so got beef from you, and they said it's awesome. Like, sign me up. I want a quarter. I want a half. I want a whole." Or just a matter of they'll buy a few retail cuts and they're just to try it, and next thing you know, okay, well, I need 100 pounds of ground beef and whatever, $500 of steaks or whatever they're going to order. They just start to order more and
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, well, I feel like that's like the opposite of what everyone assumes, that you need to be really close to a major metro market to build a successful direct to consumer business. And you're saying your unfair advantage is that you are a long ways from a major market.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's
No,
so cool.
sometimes I think it would be cool to be closer to a Fargo or a Grand Forks or a Bismarck and get,
Yeah.
a larger audience kind of right in your backyard essentially, but I don't know
Hmm.
if I'd be able to keep up. It just
Right. Right.
it's been very good. I've been fortunate to have a
Yeah.
lot of community support. There really wasn't anybody else right in this immediate area that did it
Mm.
right when
Mm.
I first started, and so that really helped as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So as far as the marketing, then, are you doing, it sounds like you're doing just not only just quarters, halves, and wholes, but you're doing by the cut and kind of bulk, or like you can buy individual cuts and stuff too.
Yep,
By
yep. So, I mean, yeah, if somebody calls me and they say, "Hey, I won't need, 2 packages of ribeyes and 4 pounds of ground beef," like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll try to
Mhm.
coordinate that to where I have a meeting spot or they can come to the farm or I'll
Yeah.
deliver it in town if I'm making other deliveries and things like that. But yeah,
Mhm.
no, I'll sell individual cuts. I've got some bundles I put together and do it that way. And then, the quarters, halves, wholes.
Yeah, yeah. Is that something you hope to expand? I mean, so we had a meat marketing business. We actually started that in 2019, and we were just sold it last year. Now I guess it's been a year and a half, but we were doing about the same amount of head a year. And that inventory management of the all the individual cuts stressed me out so much. I don't know about you. You seem like a fairly chill guy. Maybe that doesn't bother you, but for me, that was stressful. And if I could have found a way to just do quarters, halves, and wholes, that would have been amazing. But is that something you hope
Yeah.
to keep expanding the business?
Yes, yes and no. I did have opportunity to stock a freezer at an Ace Hardware location right in town, and so that's been
Nice.
really nice for a lot of the customers that would want a couple packs of steaks and a couple pounds of ground beef, or just didn't have freezer space, or just wanted small increments at a time. That really opened up the door for customers like that, and they really
Hmm.
liked it because then it brings customers into their store as well.
Yeah.
If I've got a location like that where I can, kinda move more of the individual cuts and whatnot through, that's a really good option. Honestly, I sell more of the bundles that I've got put together and, the quarters, halves, and wholes more so than I do the individual retail cuts, so it hasn't been as big of an issue for me, but I'm not gonna say I'm perfect at the inventory management on the individual cut side of things. I mean, I've got
Hmm.
a freezer trailer rigged up with different shelving and baskets and things like that for putting the different cuts and whatnot. So, I mean, you have an idea on what's there, but do I go in there every week and take an actual inventory? No. Should I? Probably. But like I said, when I'm putting together these bundles and things all the time anyway, it would make it difficult to keep track
Right.
100%.
Right, right. And as far as you're kind of having beef available, do you kind of bring in different size animals to try and stagger your actual processing schedule out, or is it butchered and then stored until you sell it?
So I've got standing appointments every month of the year.
Okay.
So it does work well that, you know, like say in the fall of the year when we ultrasound the heifers and we end up with some open heifers, you know, they do really well putting them right on full feed. And so there's going to be some size difference there to where, you pull in a group of cattle, you might however many head you pull in, you might have like a 3 to 4 month window of readiness. So it works out well there, as far as being able to stagger some of these appointments. And, if we have, a young cow or two, like a 3, 4 year old cow that loses a calf, but she's in good flesh, she's one that might end up in the butcher pen too on some feed and then go and get turned into ground beef. The guy won't ever do a full process on, cows necessarily, even though they're in good flesh and a guy could.
Mhm.
I might
Yeah.
get some ribeyes or things like that cut out, but those go
Yeah.
to our own freezer. I don't market
Right.
anything like that.
Yeah.
But then, like, when it comes time to save some calves and whatnot back, having some size differences in the weaning weights at weaning time, you've got say a 60 to 70 pound spread, from some of those Shar cross calves to the straight reds or whatever. I haven't really had any issues with staggering
Good.
cattle and having appointments filled. Now I've had to fluctuate, I might have
Yeah.
to reduce by a head or two one month and then add a head or two the next month, but
Hmm.
the processing facility I use is very accommodating in that regard.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that was the other thing that always stressed me out is having meat available. And now we weren't raising all of our own; we were buying some from other people, so that added stress. It's nice that you're able to do that all yourself and in house, so you kind of know what you got coming down the pipe anyway.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you'd honestly be really surprised at how many customers that have purchased from us that are, ranchers themselves or beef producers themselves, and
Really.
it's just not worth it for them to save back a
Yeah.
steer or 2 and feed out.
Huh.
So
Yeah.
that was
That is
another
surprising. Yeah.
interesting thing I found.
Right. Right. I figured I don't know. We're just pretty much all we eat when we sell beef. It's the good stuff. All we eat are the fat cows. Yeah, the fat cows that come up open for some reason or something like that. So
Yeah.
that's doesn't bother me, but it's funny that you got so many ranchers that are doing that. That's awesome. Cool. Well, I am curious. Like you got all these different enterprises and different things going on and stuff too. I'd be curious to track or figure out a little bit how you track your financials and the I guess the numbers of the business and stuff. That's something I'm trying to improve in my own operation now for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's something that I'm continually trying to get better at and whatnot too.
Yeah.
Easy way out would probably be to hire somebody to
Right.
handle a lot of it for you, but
Yeah.
I've switched around to a couple of different platforms and things like that, trying to make it easier. And I've done anything as simple as like a Excel or Google Sheet to
Mhm.
QuickBooks and Quicken and things like that. And actually just ended up signing up with Ambrook here a little while back. And that's been actually pretty beneficial as far as kind of
Nice.
being able to break it down on a per
Yeah.
enterprise basis. For just me directly, it's more so just, the personal income and expense, some farm expense and things like that. And then the beef business where most of the other enterprises fall under the farm. And so my uncle's got
Yeah.
that under his account, but at
Yeah.
least for me to be familiar with how it all works and to kind of break it down and understand how you can build out your reports and things like that is kind of a neat way to go, I think.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree that it's yeah, we've got 3 accounts now. It seems ridiculous to have so many, but it really is nice to be able to have it for all the different businesses and enterprises. So you kinda have your own individual personal one as well as a farm one then it sounds like?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, okay, nice. And I guess what have you found that it's how have you used it, I guess? Does it is it giving you information that has allowed you to manage better, anything like
Ambrook.
that? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, no, I really like the where a guy can go in there and tag, you can itemize all of your expenses and tag whatever category they belong to, but then you can also categorize by enterprise. So
right.
if I've got the beef company, expenses or income or whatever, it's just a matter of clicking that button and tagging it to that enterprise so
Yeah.
that, sure, it's a single member LLC and essentially all kind of gets rolled under as one, but I can at least break it down
Mhm.
and see like these
Right,
is
right.
the expense. Like I can
Yeah,
nail it down. And so it's been super simple to be able to just click and tag and,
right,
auto tag for some of it too. So it saves a
right.
lot of time and is super clean, easy.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was the big thing for me too, is realizing, yeah, it's easy to track total gross profit and gross expenses and know, yeah, the farm made this, but to know where the profit was made is, I think, essential to really know what where your money's being made and where it's being lost is probably more important even than knowing where it's being made because probably most operations have somewhere where I think the Ranching for Profit school calls it the dead wood that's kind of pulling from the business and actually maybe pulling you backwards and instead of actually helping. It's like why spend time or money or any resources doing something that's pulling you backwards.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
I think that it would be a really good habit to get into is to break down each separate individual enterprise. Like I know a lot of
Hmm.
guys have, where,
Yeah.
you've got your land enterprise, you've got your
Right.
cattle enterprise, your farm enterprise. I mean, and you're just
Yeah.
see kind of how you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. And
Right. Right. Yeah.
that's long term or, not even long term but that is
Yeah.
a future goal to
Right. Right.
get more,
Yeah.
more.
And I maybe misunderstood. So is the beef business yours separate from the ranch then?
Yes. So I own slash operate it. However, a lot of the revenue and stuff generated from it is basically reinvested back into the ranch, for
Sure.
improvements and things like that. So it's not solely in and out
Sure.
just with me. I just run and manage
Yeah.
and operate it all.
Right. Okay. No, that makes sense. Yeah. And on the I guess tagging and categorizing stuff, I think that was one of the cool surprises for me too, is how simple it actually is. I know when I was in fall harvest anyway, we don't have a grain cart or a bunch of trucks or anything running. We go down, back, dump in the wagon. And while I was dumping, unloading, that was right when I had signed up for Ambrook and I was tagging expense. I'd knock out a few expenses on my phone, and the time I emptied the hopper of the combine and was back to it. It's so easy right from your phone or anything and stuff to be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, and with that too, I'm not on top of it like I should be as far as categorizing and getting things sorted out. So when year
Mm,
end time came and, had to get everything put together to take and drop off for tax time, typically that's something I'd probably whittle away at for, a couple, 3, 4 days, just, a
yes,
few hours an evening and
I
then plug
dreaded
away
it.
at it.
Yeah, yeah,
But to go in there and at least get everything categorized, I mean, I
yeah.
did pretty much everything that would have taken the 3 or 4 days in a matter of 2.5 hours, and it's like,
Right. Yeah,
"Holy smokes,
yeah,
that was
yeah.
that was nice."
Yeah, and that's the way I always used to do it, and I absolutely dreaded every time when I had to get all my expenses. I was using spreadsheets. It was miserable. Now I've actually so far for like 4 months or whatever, or 5, 6 months, managed to create the habit of doing it daily on my phone, where it literally takes me a couple minutes a day, and I've tagged on all 3, my real estate account, our personal account, and the farm account, tagged all the expenses. I have my dad text me any receipts of things he purchases on the farm card, and I got it uploaded in there so that at the end of the year, I'm really looking forward to the tax season at the end of the year now because it's going to be done and it'll be updated and everything's right there, it'll be much easier for sure.
Yeah, and a guy
Yeah.
should get in a good habit of that to just doing it daily, for the amount of time he spends
Yeah.
scrolling on Facebook
Right.
Marketplace or other
Right.
auction sites and things like that, devote 5 minutes of
Yeah.
that time and
Yeah.
just do it.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's actually for some reason become fun to me. I don't know. I'm a spreadsheet nerd, and I'm a nerd at things like that and stuff. So it actually has become enjoyable. Where I'll do that, look forward to doing that before I start scrolling Facebook or
Yeah.
something, and then when I'm done with that, I get bored again and move on to Facebook. But yeah, is there anything else on kind of your financial, like the enterprise analysis and different things that are worth mentioning before we move on?
Well, not necessarily just because I've still got some learning and exploring and building to do, on
Yeah.
the Ambrook side. I did have Haley with Ambrook get me squared away as far as
Mm-hmm.
like the invoicing and things like that on
Yeah.
Ambrook's software versus, before it was, QuickBooks and, for the invoicing, but then my wife was using Quicken for all of our records and things like that. And then I kind of had my own
Mm-hmm.
other spreadsheet for, sales and expenses of the beef stuff. And so it's just,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's nice having it all in one platform now. It's
Right.
just a matter of
Right.
getting some understanding of how it all
Yeah.
works, jives. So ask me
Yeah.
in 6 months and I might be a professional at
Yeah.
it.
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll have to do that. You mentioned Haley kind of helped getting you set up. For me, when I first got signed up and anything, I was a little overwhelmed in the first, like trying to take a look at it before I got any of the help. And then I started getting some help and stuff. I mean, what was the process for onboarding like for you?
Yeah, so my uncle is the one that, made the jump to Ambrook first, and so a
Okay.
lot of that he just likes to include me in anyway, and so I
Sure.
sit in on the kind of the onboarding training and whatnot, and
Yeah.
there was a few things that he was, struggling to understand and whatnot, and it kinda clicked for me, and so then I started playing around with his program a little bit just to get familiar with it, and I thought, "Well, holy smokes, this seems like this could be beneficial," like, "Hey,
Right.
Healy, why don't you sign me up and let's roll with this for us personally."
Hmm.
And so she did, and she onboarded me for a couple, 3 different times there, and the onboarding process was simple, and, I mean, I'm the kinda guy we have to start kind of engaging with it for me to start thinking and like, "Oh, how does this work?" Or, to start asking questions, and any question I had, it was, "Boom, here's your answer, like, this is how you do that," or, "This is how you
Right.
can or should," or, "This is." I mean, it was simple. I mean, to
Yeah.
walk you through it and, and even just to be able to give her access if there was something I wanted her to help with,
Hmm.
give her the access and say, "Hey, can you do this?" And, "Yep, nope, it's done."
That's awesome.
Good.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, no, that's one thing I was definitely pleased with is the support available for technological, well, I don't know what the word would be, illiterates like me. It was helpful, but yeah, that's awesome. Well, I am curious, you've got a young family, you've got your brother, you've been growing the ranch pretty aggressively over the last few years. I guess what's the plan going forward? Do you hope to continue to expand the direct marketing? Is it what do you kind of look at the future? What are your
Yeah.
plans?
I yes, I mean, I think there's always a degree that you want to expand. I mean, I don't know if I'm necessarily wanting to go out of my way to jump and, dive into the deep end necessarily, but this
Yeah.
organic growth, year over year has been very manageable.
Hmm.
It's been
Right.
easy to navigate and follow through. Where if all of a sudden I say like, "Hey, I want to go from 60 to 100," like that might be a little intimidating. Even though I've got some years of experience in it, I still think it would be an intimidating step. So
Hmm.
personally, I think I'd like to just stick with the organic growth. If it grows beyond this, great. If it kind of just hangs in here, great. With the cattle markets the way they are, I mean, you've definitely got some avenues to market cattle and to do
Right.
well where, that's kind of my downfall is yes, it's a business, but I don't necessarily love overcharging, or trying
Right.
to just chase a profit all the time. I'm a big
Yeah.
profit, you have to make it work, but
Yeah.
I don't like necessarily just trying to fetch a premium, on a product that is just,
Right.
as long as
Right.
you're eating beef, I'm happy. Like,
Yeah.
support
Yeah.
the ranchers. So no, as far as that question goes, the organic growth, yes, but I don't have any like major goals or plans to just go out and, attack the world as far as that.
Yeah.
On the
Right.
ranch side of things, it's also a natural fit where it's at. If opportunity arises, absolutely gonna entertain it and make it work.
Hmm.
But I don't know if we're gonna necessarily go out of our way either and just go
Yeah.
hunt down options or ideas or things like that. It just works so much better when the opportunity comes to you and you just jump on it versus you
Right.
always
Right.
chasing.
Yeah. Right. I agree with that. Do you feel like with cattle prices now, you've been able to maintain a price that makes sense still with the direct marketing business?
Yes, and, customers understand. I mean, they see it in the
That's
news all
good.
the time. They see it in the
Right.
stores. They know that you're
If
not
they're
just
ranchers themselves, they understand too. So, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And once you kinda tell them a little bit about your program and what you're feeding and everything like that, I mean, it all makes sense to them. Don't get me wrong, you'll have customers that call and they're price shopping and, is
Yeah.
it the best fit? Probably not. But, if you do take a crack and do business with us, we're gonna treat you right and get you good
Mm.
product and whatever. It just,
Yeah.
um, there's options on the market, and like I said,
Yeah.
as long as you're eating beef, I guess it's all that matters.
Right. Good. I'm curious looking long term, and again, this might get personal, and feel free to just say you're not comfortable sharing it and stuff too. Do you guys have succession plans figured out when it comes to a multi sibling? Because it seems like, and then looking even beyond you guys, brothers, I think can oftentimes figure out a way to farm together. It might get challenging once the patriarch, your uncle leaves and stuff. Now your peers instead of senior or younger. And then when you have generations, your kids beneath you, do you have plans for succession of kind of multifamily operations?
Not like I would like to see necessarily. I mean, there's always kind of that vision or that statement that says like, "Hey, this'll be
Uh,
X, Y, and Z. This is how it'll be laid out." And I mean,
Yeah.
there's paperwork that lays some of it out, but it definitely should be cleaner and more clear cut. Especially you hear so many stories about how things were supposedly in check, and then you come to find out that hey, maybe this
Yeah.
isn't as clean as it
Right.
could have been, or
Yeah.
everybody wasn't under the same understanding, and so to answer the question, it's not as clean cut as I would like it, and that's
Sure.
something that, gonna continue to
Yeah.
push for and have more
Right.
conversation on. It's just,
Yeah.
it almost feels like a taboo topic, which it shouldn't be, but it's just it can be a difficult conversation. And I've sat in
Right.
on, a couple, three different succession planning seminars at different, farming events or things that organizations put on. And I
Right.
enjoy it. And I think I'm willing to have that conversation. It's just getting others on board and wanting to have
Hmm.
that conversation too can be difficult.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah, no, it is. It's difficult, and it's too bad that it's difficult because you're right. Every now and then you hear the stories that just seem like disasters, and that's really, really a shame. But hopefully, hopefully we can all figure it out, I guess. And it just adds a layer of complexity to when you have multiple families in the same generation. I'm fortunate in the way that neither of my brothers wanted to farm, so it's fairly simple that long term the plan is to transition to one person. So I was
Yeah.
just curious, totally fine that you don't have it figured out specifically
Yeah.
yet. I was
No,
just
I,
kind
I,
of
I
curious because
wish,
it
I wish we
yeah,
did, it,
yeah,
with spouses and kids and whatnot too, it definitely adds to the complexity. At
right.
the end of the day, your mind kind of has that focus that like, hey, yes, we're in this together right now, but I also need to kind of keep in the back of my mind like, hey, let's look at the future for my kids, my family.
Yeah,
It's what's
right.
what's to come then.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. Nope. All right, we're going to dive into today's What Are Your Thoughts questions, sponsored by Ambrook. Ambrook is the accounting software I use for all of my businesses. If you're interested in learning more, check out Ambrook. Good. Well, and I don't know if I mentioned these to you in emails prior or anything, but I have 4 wrap-up questions I like to ask everybody. I'm not sure if you've heard those yet. Sorry if I haven't prepared them for you. They're What Are Your Thoughts questions, and it can be, yeah, just give me whatever your thoughts, I guess, are on them. And the first one is what are your thoughts on debt and leverage? And you can take
Debt
these
and
any
leverage.
direction that comes to mind on them.
Yes, I guess I'm not afraid of a little risk,
Hmm.
using debt and kind of having leverage to grow and to and expand. And, there's like everybody will say, there's good debt and bad debt. And if you
Hmm.
manage it accordingly, it can be a very useful tool to expand or to grow and to do whatever, make improvements and things like that. So I'm not afraid of it like some people might be, but I think it needs to be managed appropriately for sure.
Right, right. Yeah. Are there certain things within operations and stuff that you prefer to have debt on versus would prefer to have paid for in cash, I guess? Operating equipment, livestock, land, kind of, I guess lots of different things you can invest in.
I guess I've always been under the impression that, if the cows are paid for, that you can get away with,
Mm. Hmm.
leveraging some debt against land and opportunities like that. I mean,
Yeah.
especially the way that land has appreciated in value over the years. I mean, you hear so many
Right.
stories about guys that had access to buy land back then and it was dirt cheap, whatever. They couldn't
Hmm.
make it work because they couldn't
Yeah.
pay in cash. And
Yeah.
that's where they kicked themselves, is they should have just taken on some debt and just made it work. And
Yeah.
but then you hear the same guys that'll talk like, you can't owe money on land and cattle because then that won't work. So I
Yeah.
think I'd
Right.
rather have the cows free and clear and have some debt against the land.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I tend to agree. Good. Well, on the idea of land, the next one is what are your thoughts on land ownership?
I think at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to have ownership of the land that you run on. Obviously, it's not always feasible, and there's definitely opportunities that arise where,
Yeah.
renting the land makes sense. You've got good relationship with that landlord.
Right.
They want to keep it in the family, but they want to see it operated, by you or with you or
Hmm.
whatnot. So the ultimate goal, yes, I would tend to lean towards the land ownership.
Yeah.
Renting the land, um, getting your foot in the door, so to speak, or just being able to make the
Hmm.
capital work to present those opportunities. I mean, certainly never gonna look down on anybody for running their business on rented land or, making it
Right.
work that way. If
Yeah.
it's what you enjoy doing, do whatever you gotta do to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Next one then is what are your thoughts on off ranch investing?
So, I mean, any examples there?
Diversifying, essentially like putting all your money back into the business and ranch versus retirement plans, real estate, things outside of the ranch to it. Part of the question that comes from this too is the idea of, as you get to retirement age, eventually, if all of your equity is tied up in the ranch, you have to pull your retirement from the ranch, and that might strap the younger generation with a burden that, they now have to pay a salary on somebody who's not working. Versus if you diversify outside of the ranch while you're living, then that doesn't happen. But that also pulls away income from being able to reinvest the ranch. So I kind of guess whatever your thoughts are on that
Well, and
topic.
I think part of the benefit of having our off-farm incomes, both my wife and I have relatively good jobs that
Hmm.
allows us to put some money away into, 401k or investment
Yeah.
accounts and kind of have a retirement plan to that degree so that, you know, try to keep that separate from the farm and ranch so that when that time comes to make that next transition that we're not relying, on the next generation or relying on the
Right.
ranch to make that work. I mean, so
Yeah.
we're forward thinking a little bit in that regard as far as being able to use some of our off farm income to
Right.
generate our retirement.
Yeah, yeah. No, good. And the last one then is what are your thoughts on the idea of enough or having enough? Is there a point where you take your foot off the gas on being aggressive and levering up versus just keep right on going, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah,
In
and
business and in life, I guess, and just in general. Yeah, enough.
yeah, no, and you hear that from a lot of older folks is either I shouldn't have focused on working so hard all my life, and it makes you kind of step back and think about that. And even, after having our first kid, it already makes you kind of pump the brakes a little bit that like, hey, the most important thing in life isn't go, go, go and accumulate and get more, get bigger. But I also think that if opportunity comes forward, you need to take a heavy consideration to that
Right.
opportunities. Touching back like we talked before, I don't know if a guy necessarily needs to pursue it, but if opportunity knocks, you better be willing to answer the door if it makes sense.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Awesome. Well, then that is all of my 4 what are your thoughts questions. The last one, or 2 here, just, first of all, do you have 2 or 3 resource recommendations that you would recommend people check out? That can be books, podcasts, conference, conventions, anything that's been valuable to you that you would recommend?
Well, not necessarily that comes right to mind. I mean, I feel like I follow a lot of, these podcast channels and different things like that, on TikTok or Facebook or whatnot that
Mhm.
kind of give their blippets of, other conversations that they've had like you and I here that
Yeah.
I mean, just the compilation of all of these different perspectives and different folks that guys like you talk to, they all bring kind of a tidbit here and there that are valuable. And so more than just focusing on one.
Dylan, are you there? Are you there? Did I lose you? There, you're back.
I have no idea what just happened there, but my computer just went out on me. So
You're welcome to carry on with that conversation about the resource recommendations.
yeah, no, it kind of just adding to that, it's no specific books, podcasts, things like that. I mean, I know I should be better about, diving into some of that and having good resources, but
No
I
problem.
I tend to take a lot of those tidbits and things like that from,
Yeah.
like yourself and other creators or podcast and interviews and
Mhm.
run with some of that information that those guys have to offer. So
Right.
I'm constantly willing to learn and engage and kind of learn from those experiences and those individuals. It just I don't have any top tier recommendations that I wish I did
Yeah.
to share.
No worries. No worries. Awesome. Well, then the last question is just if people want to learn more, reach out, get beef, something like that from you, where would you direct them?
Yeah, I do have a website, www.eandbeefcompany.com. And the word "and" is spelled out.
Mhm.
I'm on Facebook and whatnot as well. So I mean, folks can find me there. I'm an account manager for TerraClear, so my number is plastered, all over the place,
Right.
covering Western North Dakota and Montana.
Right.
So definitely get out and about and cover some ground. And so if you want to find me, it's usually.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Dylan, thank you so much. I really appreciated your time and your thoughts on everything we discussed today. So thanks so much.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Ranching Returns podcast. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to this podcast and share it with a friend who you think might benefit from what we talk about here. Also, if you want to learn more about what we've got going on or want to reach out, you can find me at ranchingreturns.com or send me an email at ranchingreturns@gmail.com. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Ranching Returns podcast.